Hi, I'm Anne Gaviola. Welcome to the Peak on Global, where we break down what is trending in the business world and what you need to know to stay ahead of the curve. Joining me now is Jay Rosenthal for the Peak podcast. Welcome, Jay.
Nice to be here.
Well, let's start things off with a specific type of inflation that was a big driver of the cost of living increase that we saw in April when it ticked higher: housing. Now, specifically mortgage costs, but record rents in many parts of the country also a factor in all of this. How challenging do you think this makes the Bank of Canada's job, Jay?
Well, in a word, very. This is the perfect case for, I would say, economist speak. On the one hand, we want to tame inflation with interest rate hikes. On the other hand, interest rate hikes make borrowing for a home more expensive, which drives up cost of purchasing a home, putting more people to the rental market, which drives up rent and therefore inflation. So it is not easy. So, they have a difficult task at hand, and we're seeing some of the results of their high interest rates.
Yeah, this made me think of a game of whack-a-mole. It's like you think you got one of the critters and then another one pops up over here. If it's not one thing, it's another. Now, we heard from the head of our central bank, Tiff Macklem, this week. He said the Bank of Canada estimates mortgage borrowers who renew their loans over the next few years are going to see a spike of 20 to 40% in their monthly payments. So that's in the mail. That is steep. It's a reflection, obviously, of a year's worth of extremely aggressive, successive rate hikes. Does this worry you, Jay, that this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, when I saw that, I gulped because my mortgage is set to renew within that window. So absolutely yes. But also some folks who have variable rates have already seen and felt this pressure.
Yeah.
So the way I read it, at least, this is going to shake out over a fairly long period of time, much longer than this conversation of these interest rate hikes. And that's a pretty big spike in monthly payments for sure. And so no wonder sort of the previous part of it that people are entering the rental market, which is again driving up rent. So it's this cycle. And again, whack-a-mole is probably a pretty good reference for this.
It all comes back to housing. I was chatting with a colleague of mine who recently got into the housing market, and I was like, doesn't this Bank of Canada stuff hit different when you have a mortgage? And he was like, yes, very much so. It's fascinating. And I used to think it was kind of dull as rocks. Topic number two, this is related because when interest rates climb, we see that pressure reflected in the housing market and real estate market for sure. It squeezes household budgets, as you mentioned already, with variable rate debt, and also in the financial sector. And some of the casualties of this environment, this high interest rate environment, include the now defunct U.S. regional banks. We know them by their acronyms and SVB, Signature, and First Republic. We heard from their executives in the U.S. They all blame social media for their demise, specifically for fueling and speeding up withdrawals, basically creating an old-fashioned bank run, but with a new frenzied velocity. My question here, Jay, I do have one. Do you think regulators are well aware of the need to factor in the social media, or rather the digital communication factor, into their risk scenarios? Because it's a whole new world.
Yeah, I'm just not sure regulators understand the risks or benefits of social media, full stop, whether it's about how it might fuel bank runs or about how it's the ultimate engine for data mining. So in terms of SVB, it kind of was the perfect storm, of course. There was bad risk management and a super connected depositor base. And really ironic, as SVB was a major driver in the ultra connected tech universe and smack dab physically in the middle of it. And I guess they got their hands bitten by the mouths that they actually helped feed.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a tale of so many things and all that, always going back to those interest rate hikes. I also wonder, how much of that is an excuse. So on the one hand, virtually no bank would have been able to withstand an outflow of deposits of that magnitude. Got it. But as you mentioned, those banks also had terrible risk management practices. Some of them smacked of incompetence, I dare say, in hindsight. In any case, I smell a Netflix special in the making. I would cast Pedro Pascal, Keanu Reeves, and Tom Hardy as the three bank execs, and I'm going to leave it to your imagination to figure out who would be who.
Sure, but if Pedro Pascal is in it, I'm going to watch. He's the ultimate protector. If you watch Mandalorian and Last of Us, he's the guy you want on your side for sure. He'll go through any means to save you.
Yeah, this is the way. People who know. Topic number three. 81-year-old Martha Stewart has become the oldest Sports Illustrated Swimsuit cover model. I will say I'm all for, diversity, and she's breaking the mold for sure. I personally wish she actually looked anything like any of the real 81-year-olds that I've crossed paths with. It kind of feels like two steps forward and one step back. Are we now saying you can be 81, but you got to look like this? Jay, she's kind of a big deal in cannabis circles with her bestie Snoop Dogg. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, she is a big deal in cannabis circles, or certainly was, but I'd still rather hang out with Snoop than Martha. That's just me. I think he'd be more fun to roll with. And the other thing is, like, I haven't had a Sports Illustrated subscription since 1985, and this doesn't change the fact that Sports Illustrated still having a swimsuit issue at all is, frankly, as it's kind of always been, a little bit ridiculous. But with that as the context, I think this is cool, and I think this is having the desired effect, as you and I are actually talking about Sports Illustrated, and I can't think of another scenario where that would actually be the case. So kudos to them for creating some buzz around a publication, which is widely read, yes, but certainly not the leader that it once was.
Absolutely. And I will say, in business circles, we do talk about Martha often. She's created an empire. She has grabbed headlines for a variety of reasons. And if I wouldn't choose, if you made me pick between, hanging out with Snoop versus Martha, I would pick both of them, and it would be squad goals for sure. Thank you so much, Jay, for your time and your insight.
Well, let's make that happen the next long weekend.
Okay, deal. We have 1 year to do it. And you can get all your daily business news with the Peak Daily Podcast. It is available for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts.